count me in.
Please begin your speech in 3, 2, 1.
Okay. A very good afternoon to everyone present here. Now, let me just restate the motion we're debating today before I begin my speech. We're discussing whether debate competitions should follow a formal dress code. As side proposition, we're firmly for this motion, so we'll pretend like I'm wearing a suit right now instead of a green t-shirt. To begin with, I want to make some necessary clarifications regarding the motion. By formal dress code, we refer to a dress code of no casuals. By this I mean no flip-flops, no t-shirts, no vacation or home wear, not a fully proper formal dress code entailing of tuxedos, suits and business wear. This definition makes a lot of comparative logical sense because this is at the end of the day a student competition. We want a setting which resonates with the atmosphere that we want in this for such competitions, and we do not want a setting which seems like a business competition with a bunch of 40-year-olds talking. Coming to my first constructive, I would like to point out how we want the attire of the individuals competing in the competition to match the tone of the competition. We're here in a competition that's about debate, not a competition that's about just discussion. We want the attire, we want the way we present ourselves to match the tone of the competition and to be appropriate to what it is that we're here to do. We want our attire to match the themes that we are discussing. In an event such as Behes, where we talk about incredibly cutthroat topics, incredibly up-to-date topics, in tones such where we discuss these topics aggressively with our counterparts, we mock the situation, we resemble situations of formal events and gatherings. We wanted to seem as though we actually belong here. We wanted to seem as though we actually need to be here and we actually belong in the stage, presenting the topics that we're discussing. Now, a formal dress code is about more than just the clothes that we wear. It's about the atmosphere that we build up. It's about the vibe that we create, and it's about the It's about the atmosphere that we build up. It's about the vibe that we create, and it's about what it is that we resemble. A formal dress code instigates a sense of common respect. It instigates a sense of mutual respect between me and my opposition. It shows that both parties are on the same stance. It equalizes the playing field, it levels the playing field, and it oftentimes matches up the despair that the gap that there is between clothing and between flexing. Normal casual wear can represent so much. It represents a sense of individuality, and it showcases our personality. In a debate competition where all you are is the argument that you present and the side for which you stand, a formal dress code is most appropriate as it takes away the sense of person that you have, and it puts you at one with your argument. It puts you at one with what it is that you're saying. Now, more importantly, a formal dress code replicates the setting of a real-world environment. At an event like Behes, we're not just here talking, we're not just here discussing, we're replicating an actual debate competition, we're replicating an actual formal setting. Hence, an environment where it is that we seem as though we truly belong, an environment where we replicate the setting that we wish to create here, showcases what it is that we truly should replicate, and hence, I feel as though it's most appropriate for such events. With this, I conclude my speech.
Good morning to the House at large. I am Vedika Arora, first speaker from side opposition, and we firmly reject this motion that debate competitions should follow a formal dress code. Now let me begin with the key terms. Debate competitions are contests held for the purpose of debating, which is an expression of yourself, of your opinion, right? And a formal dress code is the standardized uniform, a trouser, shirt, skirt, right? Pretty things, but how are they relevant to your debating skills? How does what you wear define your ability? How does what you wear define the way that you articulate yourself, right? So our stance here is essentially that a formal dress code should not be in place because it holds no relevance to my debating. My debating should be judged on the basis of my oratory skills over my critical thinking. Like Behes' judgment criteria, it has manner, it has method, it has matter. Does it have a space for your dressing sense? No, it doesn't, right? So, not to mention that I should be able to express myself no matter where I am. Are they trying to violate my sense of expression right now? Are they trying to violate my fundamental right to speech? I should be able to do what I want in an appropriate manner, of course. We are not saying that you come on the stage and wear bikinis or PJs. We're saying that you should dress in an appropriate manner that is, appropriate for this competition, but you should not restrict yourself to a specific type of clothing, which makes me move on to my stakeholder analysis. That is marginalized communities. They speak from such privilege, they speak from such ignorance, they do not acknowledge that there are people who cannot afford these trousers. I got these trousers from Zara, they were 3K. Do you think a poor child can afford that? No, they can't, and they ignore that because everyone does not have the resources to comply to this dress code. And debate organizations, they enable more students to participate. If the motion falls, then debate organizations organizations will ensure that more students can participate because there will be no financial barriers. If you are rich, it doesn't mean everyone is rich, dear house. So our main constructive is how lifting a dress code will support autonomy, it will support accessibility. If you implement a formal dress code, it will prioritize that over your debating. So this competition will then be about what type of shirt I wear, what type of dress code I have, and whether I repeat my clothing or not. It will not be about whether you respect the opponent, it will not be about whether you articulate yourself, it will not be about whether you speak properly, and that is what debating should be about. It should not be about the clothes you wear, right? Moving on, removing the dress code levels the playing fields. It will allow people to express themselves, and I would like to reiterate that point 1,000 times because their opinion is misguided when it comes to this. Because when you don't have a dress code, individual expression is allowed. You can express your bodily autonomy. You are more comfortable, more confident. If you have to wear heels all day, if you have to wear tight clothing all day, will you be able to debate well? No, you will not be able to, which is our point, because when you are comfortable, you are more confident and you can debate better. Right. So when you express yourselves in a way that is not, when you express yourselves, your social divide is not deepened because you are expressing yourself. You do not care about other people's opinions. You are not inferior to what they say, right? I'm so sorry. They also talked about professionalism, which is my major rebut. They talked about professionalism. Does professionalism come from a dress code? Should it not come from the way you articulate? Thank you so much. I rest my case here, but never my stance.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Ishani Nijhawan going as second speaker from Team BMK, and to reiterate, we are strongly for the motion at hand. Firstly, I'd be elated to re-establish the interpretation of the motion set by the proposition as it's been taken to a completely extreme end by the opposition. Now, the opposition has been looking at their case as to two extreme ends. As to if you do impose formal dress codes, then people would not be comfortable, self-expression would be limited. And as to if you do not, then all of that will not occur, all of that will not exist. That is not what our case. Our case is about a logical perspective model, which I will be introducing in my coming speech. Well, our interpretation of the motion is that a formal dress code would mean more than just the physical appearance and what you are wearing. It would reflect professionalism, it would reflect respect, and it would reflect the shared commitment to seriousness for the event that you are going for. And hence, removing a dress code does not level the playing field as they have been asserting. The gap in perception remains prominent, and hence dress codes would only enforce a disciplined environment and enhance the debating experience and not limit self-expression as what the opposition has been persisting on. Coming to that, my three main constructives. Firstly, the psychological impact of dress codes on confidence. Well, studies by universities such as the Northwestern universities have found the concept of include cognition. Now, what that says is that there's a psychological influence of the clothes that you wear on the wearer. Now, this instigates that formal clothing would sort of lead to a state of mindly readiness, where you are ready for the event up front. The concept of include cognition, I repeat, ladies and gentlemen. And hence, you would not be at leisure or comfort while you're at this debating event. However, you are going to be ready for the challenge that's up front and you are matching the seriousness of the event. Second point, dress codes equalize social perception and reduce bias. Now, a main point consulted by the proposition was that of increasing bias. However, it's the very opposite, which is justified by the pull-out effect. Now, this shows that people judge other people based on their experience, based on their dress codes. They judge their intelligence, they judge their trustworthiness, and they judge their capacity based on appearance. I repeat, appearance, ladies and gentlemen. And so, by standardizing attire, by standardizing Western formal dress codes, we are setting a standard for all people to be dressed in a similar manner. We are reducing these biases. These very biases that the propositions base their whole case upon. We are reducing such biases, ensuring that debaters are judged on their arguments and not the appearance of their casual clothing and not the brands on which the clothes they wear. We are not talking about high-end brands of formal clothing. We are talking about standardized dress codes. I repeat, ladies and gentlemen, uniform standardized formal dress codes for all, where everybody is dressed in the exact same manner, in a very similar manner. And with this, the proposition would like to say that the burden of proof on us was to establish that formal dress codes are essential and enhance the debating experience, which they do. With that, we shall rest our case. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
The proposition clearly tried to mislead the audience and adjudicator by defining dress code inappropriately. I'd like to take the official definition of dress code. Dress code includes rule or rules dictating what one physically wears. More emphasis on the word physically. Whereas the proposition try to reinterpret the motion by not just reinterpreting it, but by challenging a definition by quoting an incorrect one. That is, they had a loophole which proves not just one, not just two, but all their arguments null and void. But that being said, I want you all to Google a smart debater. What comes up in the images? A man wearing smart dress code, that is formal dress code apparently. We, by defining formal dress code as the official one, will be continuing with the norms. Whereas, if that norm goes away, we are the ones challenging those very norms, making and going against those norms, making inclusivity the key. Making people who generally are not fit in the box of the norm feel included in that very debate competition. Now, the proposition speaker number 1 said something very funny. They said, abide by the tone of the event. We are referring to a debate competition here. A debate competition in its very essence is supposed to be about intellectual expression, self-expression, and by limiting that to formal clothing, we are questioning the very basis of that very competition. We are questioning if that competition should exist in the first place. If I go to a debate competition and I'm debating upon if formal attire should be worn while not wearing a formal attire, that is the point of the debate. There's a clash. If we make something possible, there would be no clash, therefore then there's no point in the debate. This brings me to my next argument about affordability. Now the proposition comes from a very privileged point of view. If I talk about affordability, it is a known fact that formal clothing is more expensive in general as well. And that limits people's access to this very debate competition. Therefore, if hypothetically Behes makes formal clothing a compulsion, that would imply that everyone, most of you here, in fact 80% of you here will not be present here, thus limiting your access to this very competition. Then comes to the point of comfort. Now, I'll not only look into the comfort, but I'll also look into how that comfort affects me. I am not wearing any formals. Does that affect my confidence? No. My point being that formal attire in no way can be interrelated with confidence. It is a fallacy and a mere assumption by the proposition. This brings me to my rebuttals. Now, formal clothing is not equal to respect. The proposition tries to conclude and relate formal clothing to respect, whereas respect comes from gesture, not what I wear. Even if I'm wearing shorts right now and I respect you, that would be a gesture of respect. This brings me to my last rebuttal, that is a question rather. If you, ma'am, and most of the debate Behes team members today are not wearing formals, does that imply that it questions your ability to mark us as an adjudicator? What the proposition today is arguing for is, you ma'am, you are not complied enough or you are not qualified enough to be an adjudicator because you are not wearing formals. That is what the proposition is arguing for. With this, I rest my case, but definitely not my stuff.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Shanvi Nishavan, also going as third speaker from the proposition side of the motion. And to reiterate, we are strongly for the motion at hand. Ladies and gentlemen, the debate and our stance today can simply be summarized by a simple statement, which is reality of the 21st century in which we reside. As much as we may dislike it, it is inevitable that what we wear affects the way that we are perceived. No matter how much I'd want to change that ideology or advocate against that ideology, that is the reality of today, and we are fighting on today's grounds. We are fighting on the current status quo and the status quo that we are prominently living in right now. We are not persisting this motion in a very idealized world that the opposition situated it in. Now moving on to some very needed rebuttals, as the opposition's arguments seem to have taken a long stroll on the beach, targeting our perceptions about our beautiful adjudicator. First speaker, they started by saying that how does what you wear define the way you articulate yourself? My debate should be about what I speak. Well, exactly our point, ladies and gentlemen. Your debate should be about what you speak, and to reduce that bias that other individuals perceive by the visual stimulus of your clothing, to reduce the psychological pull-out effect. That is why we are standardizing dress codes. The opposition has not once acknowledged that by saying formal dress codes, we mean standardized formal dress codes, equated for all, not different formal clothing, standardized clothing. Other than that, they also said that we need to dress in an appropriate manner. This is exactly our case. Our casuals really very appropriate for, let's say, an extremely serious debating environment. They also took an example of somebody walking up in a bikini and that they do not advocate for it. Again, this goes to show how the propositions in thinking of our case as two extremes. We are not fighting on one extreme end and another extreme end. Our case is about a simple model wherein wearing certain formal attire would reduce cognitive biases and enhance a more fair debating experience for everybody. I repeat, fair. After that, they also said that everyone does not have the resources to comply to the dress code and brought across a point about financial barriers. Ma'am, in this economy, formal dress codes also come through a variety of brands, which include high-end brands and low-end brands. And if you're talking about the financial barriers placed by formal dress codes, do casuals also not instill financial barriers for some? Are casuals also not expensive? Are casual clothing also not judged upon? Everything in this economy comes at two different ends. People can buy what they can afford according to their constraints. They do not have to be constrained by a certain brand or conform to certain standards set by the other participants. That's why we are saying standardized. They also said that this competition will be about what we dress about and not about what I speak. This was a point that was continuously repeated in the opposition's case, and they have not once cited or acknowledged the fact that that is exactly our point. We want to reduce the bias that other participants may gain by the visual stimulus system. Let's say you are debating against a team with 3 people dressed up in full coats and the opposition is wearing casuals. Obviously, even as a spectator, you may have a cognitive underlying bias as to who may be intellectually stronger. And hence, with that, we'd like to say that the opposition's arguments are simply taking a long stroll on the beach without actually acknowledging that our foundation is based on a very psychological matter. And it's a known fact, ladies and gentlemen, as much as the opposition likes to twist the case, that we are judged by how we are clothed, and clothes do matter. With that, we shall rest our case. Thank you very much.
To state a very simple quote to the proposition today, that if your policy does not change or challenge any stereotype, that does not, and I mean that does not give you the right to perpetuate them, because your policy today of applying this formal dress code perpetuates them. If your policy, yes, you agree that it does not change anything, does not change these stereotypes or challenges them, that does not give you the right to perpetuate them even further, which I will explain in my model. See, their model has a lot of flaws which I will be pointing out. What will happen if their model is applied into a real world scenario? See, they talk about how it equalizes the playing field. This is a complete logical fallacy because of the debater cannot reach the competition itself because of the high prices of these formal dressing codes. How will they create an equal playing field anyways? That is a simple logical fallacy that their argument is based around. Also, they talk about, they also give us a very twist of greenwashing. See, greenwashing is basically when you have a perceived notion of equality and sustainability. What they perpetuate is even worse than the status quo. They believe that their model today promotes equality, promotes removing of financial barriers, which is not the case. Now, what will happen if our side is implied into a real world situation? See, we create inclusivity for all. No financial barriers, no financial barriers to judge them based on their appearance. See, words that they used were standardization. They talked about having similar manners of dressing. I would like to ask everyone present here, do all of us come from similar backgrounds that we can afford similar styles of clothing? No, we cannot. And that is a simple logical fallacy. Again, what their point of view is a very elitist as well as a privileged point of view, which will not and lead to bad ripple effects into a real world status quo. Now let's talk about what we give you. See, we talk about what is the point of a debate competition. Self-expression. And what is fashion? Fashion is a form of self-expression. So when you limit it and restrict it to formal dress codes, you make self-expression a limitation. You create limitations on how I want to dress, how I want to express myself. Then what is the point of me coming and sharing my views? Right? The second thing that I talk about, the stakeholder at cost. Marginalized communities who want to take part in these debate competitions. How these financial barriers will limit them to come on to these debate competitions, whereas affecting the debate community as a whole. Right? It affects how we see each other. It affects how we judge based on each other. The third thing we talk about is how we want to break these norms. See, we all have a definition of what a smart person looks like. They should be dressed in a tie, a bow tie, tuxedos. But is that really what we want in this progressive society? We as a house want to challenge these norms and break these norms that a smart person can look like anything they want, and smartness lies in self-expression, autonomy, agency and liberation, whereas they talk about in exclusive well as uniformity, which is also the major clash in this debate. The clash in this debate arises when you talk about self-expression versus uniformity. And in a debate competition, if you want to clash about self-expression, I think it takes away the very core of me expressing my opinions here. In this clash, self-expression wins because that is what the debate competition is about. That is what freedom is about, right? Okay, I'll just conclude. Now to conclude, I would like to say that today the proposition did not give us a policy as well as did not question and even defend their evaluation that we refuted. We have no answers from their side, which proves that their case has been proven null and void, and we win the clash in this debate, which is the self-expression. That's my case. Thank you.